G'day punters, welcome back to episode 11 after a long hiatus. John Walter.
You've done well to remember
good to
what
have you back.
You must have gone back through the archives. Yeah.
I did indeed. So at Punters Academy, what we're aiming to do is what we pretty much started out doing, and that was just giving you some insight into some of the races that have been run, answering your questions, and just talking about general things that might help people back a winner.
Yeah, and there's a lot changed kind of since 18 months or over a year anyway.
It's about a year or so, yeah.
Since we last did it, and there's a lot changed since then, so we've got plenty to go through over the weeks, I guess, and anyone that does have questions, changing landscape of how to deal with it. I'm sort of adapting. I'm sure Paul's probably the same, but
yeah, I've made some changes.
It's definitely plenty out there that we can sort of get through. So hopefully we can help everyone week to week with their different things that they've got to offer. Plus go through the races, as Paul's saying. It's leading into springtime now, isn't it? It's nearly there. So exciting times for everyone. It's a good time to kick back off.
Indeed. Okay, so Randwick Kensington on Saturday, a bit of an unusual meeting. There were some good performances, John. Why don't we just run through these races and see if we've got anything to offer. I mean, the first race was won by Toolong Brook, the Highway. Look, it rated pretty ordinary.
These are my sort of horses, and Toolong Brook's not a horse that I want to find if it goes to Dubbo. So I think we can really skip the Highway. Like, it's probably a Highway that you wouldn't use as a reference for a future Highway. That's probably the only upside to it. I'd say it's going to be a lot of people say Highway form's good for Highway form, but this one's not a great Highway. That's probably the only thing to take out of it.
Yeah, and look, the overall time was obviously impacted by the fairly slow first section there.
Yep.
So race 2 there was won by Connemara, bless its heart, and look, it rated well, and I'm surprised at the price they put up because if you look at some of that leading form around Hawkbury on Her, and
that's what price does Hawkbury on Her start in that race that day? It's probably 2's on or something, and she put a neck on it before. It's a nice horse, Hawkbury on Her. I'm not saying that you couldn't say Connemara was a cat off being beaten by Hawkbury on Her, and it was a bit surprising. I'm not allowed to bet anymore. I'm not allowed to bet anymore on these races, so I don't take that much interest in the betting. But I was a little bit surprised when it flashed up. I think it's still SP, 9-2 or something, or
look, I had it shorter, as you can see there, John.
$3.50, good result, good result for the battlers.
And look, I must admit I was a little bit worried about it at the 1400, and I had penalised it, a couple of kilos off that effort the previous start, but it was a great ride by Nash and well timed, and not much to say about the rest of them. I think
you didn't like Wimlar, but I kind of thought Tim rode it well. He's obviously the third run. I think it was 1400, and he wanted to make it a staying test to test Connemara out to see if it had any sort of substance to it, and she mightn't have gone as well as they kind of hoped, but it definitely paid to the rest of them very easily.
Yeah, and the overall time was pretty good, John. They ran about 3.5 lengths better than standard for the 1400 at Randwick, and look, the last section was good, and there might be a really bit of form out of that race. Yep.
The next one is a horse that's...
Pandemic, nice horse this. It won in good time, around about 3 lengths above, came home about 3.5 lengths above. So that was the leader section. Obviously the horse, I think, did better. And a couple out of that race, Pandemic and Matty Rocks was a nice run too.
Chase, I think this horse is pretty special. It's all the boys say when they ride this track that it's momentum over anything else. It's really hard to pick up, and this horse sort of ran into a few dead ends. Pandemic, they've obviously not gone out that quick. They've run quick overall time, so they've probably gone out steady and then quickened off.
About half a length below. So we'll call that average.
So it's not as if it's a super slow tempo, but he's turned it into one by sprinting hard from basically a standing start. Matty Rocks had the good swooping momentum run that you want for this track, and he picked up off a dime and put the sword to it. And I'm not knocking Matty Rocks, even though because it's put the rest of them away. There's some pretty fast and nice horses in the race, making Whoopie and others behind. So I would be extremely surprised if Pandemic wasn't a group horse, like a black type horse at minimum.
Yeah, nice turn forward.
Yeah, and Matty Rocks has definitely got wins in it for sure.
Yeah, I think Matty Rocks' ratings would suggest that it's still upside there. Irish Songs wasn't a bad run.
This Godolphin stable now, I've sort of carried on about it a bit on Twitter, is they backed 2 horses until, like, I think they were sort of 4s to evens both times, and really solid late both times. And one was Subadar that went from won at Kembla Maiden, and it was a bit unlucky. Sort of inside, wasn't a showy win, but got out and sort of overcame a slow tempo and a few things. Went straight to town, and they sort of missed it because of the slow time, I think, and sort of underestimated what it did at Kembla. But it was heavily backed and won, then came to town and won. This horse was heavily backed at Wyong. All the other chances in the race kind of had the perfect run that they needed, and this horse put it to the sword. You can see why when it's gone and done this. But
nice
my kind of point is that Godolphin have a really good team at home at the moment that they can line up maidens with, and any horse that's backed confidently at their sort of first starts, one, you want to take notice of that because they've got great horses to line them up with, and two, if they're backed and backed and backed, I think you can follow them pretty solidly as long as they sort of do something in the race. But I'd expect them to improve again is kind of what I'm saying. I think the blue colours are super strong at the moment, and
they're going well, and we're going to talk about some of those races from Melbourne after too.
This is another 3-year-old to add to the list for them. Pandemic, and I think he's probably no one had heard of him 6 weeks ago, but he's one that'll probably play his part over the spring if he chooses to, or it's not like James Cummings to put him away and look after him and produce him in the autumn if he wants to. But he's a horse of the future for sure.
Okay, so Royal Witness won the 1,000-metre race. Look, it did a little bit of work up on the speed, and it was fair. And look, the time wasn't anything flash. They sort of ran about average. What do you got to say about this?
He's just a horse for course. He is a 1,000-metre momentum-y, is that a word? Momentum-y Kensington track specialist. That's his go. If he gets a bit of pressure, he probably gets found wanting and something beats him. But he was able to control the tempo this time and got home. I thought the second horse, they obviously expected it to race a little bit closer, but it drew really awkwardly, got a thunder. And I thought it was a great ride, actually. Like, he slotted in, he got held up momentarily, but sort of cut back, ended up behind the leader, cut inside, and never really got held up. And there was a bit of blowing up about his ride, about Brent Avdullah's ride. I thought it was one of the best rides of the day.
I didn't have any.
He's a hard horse to catch, but he's got wins in him. But I think these horses are pretty much what I sort of call take turns horses. They'll all find a race where they can win, but there's nothing in the race I really want to rubber stamp as a horse that's really progressive and can win races with things not going in their favour. They kind of need to find the right race and have the right run to get home.
What did you think about the track, John, on Saturday?
I initially thought it was really on pace and inside. It probably kind of evened out, but the track does tend to do that. It seems to sort of, as the day goes on, you're able to make a bit more ground, but it's a horse I'd rather be with an on-pacer as a rule. But if you find the right race, you can certainly swoop, which they did in the last. But the horse in the last, we'll get to it, but it went a lot better than I thought it possibly could. But that 1,000-metre race especially, it seems like it's really tough to come wide and win. But sort of the longer they go, it's a
probably
funny
not a lot
track
to say about it, is it?
No, I think the track's pretty good. It's racing quite well. It's
better than the old Kensington.
Yeah, it is. It's still not a track I really want to see too often on a Saturday. I'd rather the real Randwick or the real Rose Hill, but it's definitely a good track for winter months.
Commander won the fifth event, slow time. They went out very slow, I suppose. That impacted it. And, doesn't look to me there's much scope in this race.
No, it was an ugly little race, and it was a great ride. I thought there was Slow Burn was the leader, I think, and I don't know whether Nash did his homework really well and he sprung back into it because he's had not a lot to do lately. But he was Slow Burn kind of when it lobbed there and he lobbed outside. That was the perfect recipe for Nash to be able to sit off him, totally let Slow Burn control the race, knowing that he was not in the race because of the distance, and whenever he wanted to put him to the sword, he could. And that was kind of how it worked out. I think it was just more won by the ride and tactics than anything else. There was some wibbly back runs. I don't think there's any worth. It was just probably well done, Nash, and move on.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, the only other thing to say is Tour Down Under had a lot of support.
He did, and ran well. Ran right up to it, probably.
Probably could have been a bit closer in the run had it wanted to.
Yes, and that was probably what cost it the race. I think even if Commander had a lead and it lobbed outside it, I probably want to be with Tour Down Under. It was just perfect for Nash, the way it all worked out.
So the sixth race, we saw Stampede improve on what it's been doing recently with the blinkers back on, drier surface, and it's a hard horse to work out, Stampede.
That's right. You kind of thought he was a wet tracker, like he won first up that day on Everest Day when Josh rode him and absolutely gapped him, and then this time in he sort of looked like he had a similar setup but hadn't done matched what he'd done that time. And then he goes out Saturday with 63, or was it 63? Or
Yeah,
so it was
big-
some
big
crazy.
weight,
I think he
yeah.
had to give 10 kilos to Wolf, and he set a solid enough tempo, didn't he? I don't know. He controlled.
No,
I know he's actually.
no,
I know they've controlled
gone,
it really well.
Yeah, they control it really well.
Yeah.
They've gone slow and
And he's zipped
sprinted
home, and
obviously that favoured
yeah.
those horses.
I think
up on
he's
the
a hard
score.
horse to place Stampede simply because of his rating, but they'll find a set weights penalty race for him pretty soon. I'd say he'd be pretty hard to beat. The winner was, like, I know he carried 53, but I think he was supposed to carry 3-4 kilos less than that if they raced it at true weight. So he was sort of thrown in there looking to get his benchmark up, and I'm sure they would have absolutely nailed him at the benchmarks, which is what they were after, I'm sure, to try and get Wolf into some better races over the spring. So it was sort of mission accomplished for the stable. Stampede's back in form. He's done a good job, and Wolf's beat him home. So
Was it
I'm
a
sure
betting
they were
race for
happy.
you, John?
I could not have possibly backed Wolf at the price that it was, and I know it was heavily supported. It was sort of 320-ish into 250-ish late, and any
marked
money for it.
So you win 13-8 and Wolf 2-1, and
Yeah.
and played the race and.
Yeah, well, you were he ran third, didn't he? So he was probably the forgive horse due to the tempo, if there was one, wasn't there?
Yeah,
So you win. So
possibly.
yeah, in the run you were basically out of business. But
Yeah.
I was still surprised. Like I wouldn't have been surprised if Stampede fought on and beat Wolf. He's a funny horse to me. He does. Like I know he's 6 for 5 or something like that. 6 starts, 5 wins, and he's
Wolf?
never. Yeah, and possibly his first preparation was when I was more excited about him, and since then he's been more of a tradesman, but never done anything really flashy. So that's a good sign too that a horse is just a winner and a racehorse. So
Well, you've had a win either way, John. I mean,
I've had a win. Well, I'm not allowed to bet, so the only thing I can do now is cheer for Tim. He's he now that he knows I can't bet, he's ridden 15 winners in 2 weeks and thinks it's the greatest thing on earth. He thinks that I'm the train stopper that's been stopping him for the last 2 years. So Wolf's the progressive horse in the race, but Stampede's ready to go too, I think.
Yeah, okay. We'll see what Stampede does going forward. The next race was won by Called Tuesday. It bloused them, and look, there was a little bit of pace on in this race, and Seaway went awfully. I suppose we can talk about that. And the money for Wren's Day, where did it come from?
Skeptically, I'd say second favourite was Seaway. It was $3.50. They had to find something to beat it, knowing's a bad word. Suspecting that the horse was not going to align with a $3.50 betting market,
Yeah.
they've gone looking for something else.
And I suppose it's got that cracksman form in Europe and so forth. But
It did, and its trial was why its trial was good was because it was against fast horses, sort of Nature Strip and these sort of horses.
Yeah.
And even though he wasn't flashy in the trial, he showed really good fresh speed, which is probably what you wanted to see to see him lining up in a 1400. His form was sort of 2000, 1600, 2000 overseas. So want to be with him here, you wanted him to be pretty fresh, and that's what his trial showed. He obviously got the class of the cracksman form. If you put a pen through Seaway and say that it's not going to run up to its market expectation, where do you go? And
I had Bangkok in there fitting in strongly. So
well, it's well, and it ran right up to it really. Like it's a horse that was racing in pretty ordinary restricted grade not long ago, and he's done. I was talking to Alan the other day, and he said the horse has been up since November or September or something crazy. The horse has done a great job this preparation, and it was the one that was well set up to do its absolute best.
Yeah.
Kind of in the race, and
Yeah.
and I reckon it ran up to that. It's
it ran a nice
the winners had very good form previously, and I think someone was telling me I think it was first up last time in when she was earmarked to be a pretty nice horse. I think she had an SP over Seaway. And a pretty strong one where she'd started probably half his price first up last time in. So if you took a line through that and people do that,
Sure.
and she's
That was the case.
there was no fluke to obviously there was a little bit of tempo on, but not too many horses came down that part of the track and won. So she's got scope to go forward, and she was well backed. She was I think from the Waller count, one was 5 to 2 to 8s and one was 15s to 8. So which one did you want to be on? Rhetorical
Bangkok.
question. Yeah, you want to be on Bangkok. I want to be on Girl Tuesday, but only now.
Yeah.
No, I think Girl Tuesday will be fine going forward. I think Wren's Day will be interesting. I'll be keeping an eye on it. I didn't do enough to want to be with it wherever it goes next
You've got
up.
to
but
respect the SP and the betting.
you do, and it did not do enough to want to follow. It sort
You
of
can't
wide, and she tried to go forward and back, and tried to do a lot of things on it. And then I read that he said it sort of got a little bit winded too when it came out, so it was a forgive run. They're probably the two out of the race that you want to be paying the most attention to going forward, apart from the stayers who are a long way off their targets.
And the next race we saw Vikingdom come bounce back and have it look like it had it shot to bits. And did he go a bit early?
Yeah, and it's a bit weird because he knows the horse. I think James McDonald rode it. Yeah, and he knows the horse, and I think he did go too early, especially considering the control they had over the race. And if you're sort of talking about how well Nash rode Commander earlier in the day with a similar position, he sort of put the leader away way too early. And left him a bit of a sitting shot. You did, and I honestly, it was a race that I barely looked at, and I couldn't tell you. I can see Jake Noonan rode it. I know it's a Melbourne horse. You obviously found that too good.
I'm not upset by the result.
You're not upset, and I remember when it crossed the line, I was like, "Who's I'm Vinny?" I'd never heard of the horse, so that's how much attention I paid to the race.
It came off a synthetic win in Melbourne last time.
Oh, there you go. So
and I totally ignored that. I don't look at dirt ratings or synthetic ratings for turf tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But even just going back through some of its fairly recent turf form, it was there on my figures. So
if Vikingdom come, to me, he's just a Saturday horse, and what he ESP'd 5-2 or something. It's probably a race where you were looking wider. Shock Alert was the horse, wasn't it? That was Josh Led, and he just put him away a little bit early. Yeah, he shouldn't have been too scared of it. It was more what was coming from behind, and he does have a good little turn of foot, like Kingdom Coming. I'm pretty sure he would have traded nice and short on Betfair, but
I didn't actually see
you were very happy with his ride.
I was focusing on another horse in the race, but anyway, look, I mean, they went out a few lengths slow there and came home quite well. In the last race, we got All Too Royal, who managed to get up and win, and late down that Girl Tuesday.
This is a race I spent a lot of time looking at just because I love these sort of sprint races, and from a punting perspective, I think it would have caught my eye when Mr. Songman was very short, and in a race where he didn't look like he was going to cross at any stage. He was never going to get near the fence, which is his desired racing pattern previously, over a little bit further. So it was an attractive betting race for me to look at, and I couldn't have found a winner because I thought it was in a very similar position to Mr. Songman, where it was going to sort of be caught either wide or go back. There were a couple of horses in the race that looked interesting in Murillo and Laburnum, who had what I would look for in that sort of, if they're going to go quick and I want to find the 1400 metre horse, 1200 metre horse fresh that's going to be strong and coming down the middle, especially there, that sort of momentum we'll talk about. And this horse sat behind Murillo and Laburnum and gave him Winburn and absolutely smashed him. What he sort of carried weight, I'm not sure what weight he carried. He had the apprentice aboard.
Yep.
It was. I kind of watched it 3 or 4 times. Yeah, got out to good. Like, what did you find it?
$9.
Sort of similarly, so it was close. It was over. It was sort of $12-13, wasn't it?
Yeah, a bit better.
But there was no fluke to it, and I thought Mr. Songman went great too. I was really happy with this. I don't think he's an 1100 metre horse in any way, shape, or form.
That was the horse that was hard to price for me. I sort of was kind as I could, and I marked it 13 away.
Yeah.
And when I saw the money came for it, I thought, maybe this is more.
The money was crazy for it at one point. I think it got into odds on there for a little while, and then sort of flattened back out to sort of 230 or something. But
and Tell Me was the other runner I expected.
Well, I couldn't find it. I thought that Mr. Songman had the measure of anything that was going to sort of be in front of it, but I thought it was be left because he was more of a one pacey sort of strong horse, that something behind him would be more dangerous, and that's kind of how it turned out. But I just didn't expect it to be All Too Royal. But like I don't know. I think this is going to be a really strong form race. I think Mr. Songman's going to be really dangerous when he gets up in trip, and I think the winner's dangerous in a better race down in the weights. You know what I mean? I love to see in a 1,000 listed or 11 listed down in the weights.
The time was comparable with Pandemic's race.
Yep.
Earlier in the day, but Pandemic's race they
come home quicker,
about 2 lengths quicker.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly.
And so he's a little bit pacey. Well, as you said, they've not really. They've gone strong tempo throughout, and it's given them sort of 6 or 7. Again, not too many horses did that on the day. So I think there's a lot of merit with the winner and the second horse here. And I wouldn't be surprised if horses like Murillo and Laburnum can improve. I think this is a good form race, to be honest. I think they'll all go in different directions.
Yep.
I'm not saying they're all looking for 1,100 metre benchmark 88s. I'm saying there's milers, 1,400 metre horses in this race, and I think it's a very strong form race.
So Pandemic's race and All Too Roll's race are probably
I think they're the two deepest,
yeah.
definitely. And then and Girl Tuesday's not hopeless, and the rest of them they'll be looking for similar grade. The ones that the progressive horses are in those 2, possibly 3 races.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's chat about Caulfield Saturday. There was some black type racing on offer there. Look at a few impressive performances. I mean, the first race was won by Pippi in never looked like getting beaten. They went. I don't know if you saw the race, Sean.
I didn't. I saw a few of the races, mostly sort of second half of the card. I definitely didn't see Pippi, but I can see what it's done.
Well, they've gone quick, and look, they've run over all time there, and look, Bivouac's time was slightly better on the day, and Pippi certainly was a strong performance, but it did have first use of the track at the 1100, so.
Track was actually better than I thought it'd be. I was told, I know they put up a sort of a 5, did they? And
Yeah,
I was told
it's read as a 4, and just going back to Randwick or Kensington, it was a fast track.
Yeah.
Particularly fast in the last section too.
Okay.
So it rated close to.
They put a little bit of water on it, but I think they put 5 mils or something like it. But it's a funny track. Even when I know, using your software, it's even when they put up 6 and 7s, it comes up at 2 or 3. It's quite a fast, a draining surface. And a fast surface.
Indeed.
But Caulfield, I was told to expect sort of a 6 or a 7, and obviously it's raced better than a 5. So
look, I mean, track conditions are a bone of contention, and they get them wrong quite often. And look, the best way to be able to monitor it is to do it yourself, really. And if you've got access to either our software, there's tools in there that you can use called Verify Race Day Track Condition. If you're doing it
during the day, that is,
you can certainly just take note of the times, and if you've got some sort of par references and what to work with, you can come up with some sort of reading yourself, which is probably going to be better than what the official is. So Caulfield, so Pippi was obviously a good performance. On Bivouac, I mean, is probably the most impressive winner of the day for mine, and it's run 4.3 lengths above and just smashed them, and the turn of foot was just quite incredible. Getting back to these blue colours, they're just going so well.
He had form around some pretty serious horses in Sydney, and even Libertini, who's going around this week, sort of put it away at its last preparation. It had form around Juby, so I was kind of thought, I was surprised they were so close in the betting, because I thought Bivouac had it all over him for upside, and it kind of surprised me how they backed the other horse in the race. I think Damien Oliver rode it. It was kind of way up in grade and didn't have to give them, like it was only getting a little bit of weight off these horses, but it wouldn't have mattered if this thing carried a dump truck on its back. It just absolutely smashed it, and did it with great acceleration, without even pressure. It was incredible, and this horse is a testament to the way James Cummings trains for me, because he looked after him last prep. He sort of gave him a month between runs, I think on 3 occasions, trialled him, which he does with his older horses, but the way he's seasoning these 2-year-olds to become 3-year-olds, and it's more about the horse. It helps when you've got 10 of them to choose from, but he sort of kept this horse out of Group 1s when it probably could have. If it was in another stable, there's no doubt it probably was thrown into harder races or more, taxing races, and he might not have come back and raced this way. And this horse looks like, I think he's come to the Sand of Medico, I read, next start in Sydney, and they want to be good to beat him off that performance. And I'd be very surprised if Hugh Bowman wasn't sticking with him. But
that's right. I mean, it was a great performance, and they ran about 6.3 lengths faster than the following winner, Exhilarates, over the same trip. And
I'm not big on ease down and all this and what he had. Like I'd probably treat him with his final margin and what he did. That's kind of what I hate to think of. He had 2 lengths up his sleeve and any of this stuff. But he,
how do you know?
That's right. Whatever he did, that's enough for me, and that's what he's certainly capable of doing and going forward. And you wouldn't be surprised to see him on an upward spiral.
So the winter fine there, Be Good to Your Mother, won the next race. The Regal Roller, and it's proven itself now at a better level, and got control once again, and was too good.
So I looked at his form,
and looked a bit dangerous.
Yeah, dangerous. And to me, 1200 first up was a query for this horse, and the strength that he showed, and the way he put him away, and sort of the aggressive nature that he tacked the line. You can't knock this horse in any way, shape, or form. It's a winner.
It is indeed. It is, and it's been a good horse to me. And
the racing pattern's great. He's strong. He sort of puts horses under pressure behind him to chase him.
And Haunted did look like it was going to...
and Haunted hard fit. He's been all over the place.
Had the nice run.
Yeah, he'd been up to Grafton and back to Sydney and back to Melbourne, so it's not easy to do, but he had the right run and he was hard fit, and again, like that stable doesn't send him around unless they're 100%, so he had everything in his favour to be dangerous, and he put him to the sword.
So Mystic Journey's race there, I mean, the 1400 earlier in the day, the benchmark 84 in race 4, ran about 2.3 lengths faster overall. Look, I mean, I suppose it's a decent return for the horse, and they didn't look like they were going that quickly.
Well, it was a funny race trying to watch it. I was worried the horse would sort of get stuck. I thought he'd crossed the one inside him instinctively and maybe stuck with 50 Stars, Hartnell, other horses sitting outside him, and that was going to be, or her, that was going to be her problem, extracting herself from that position, and especially if it was sort of a 6 or a 7, which I was expecting, probably wouldn't be the best place to be, even with a 10-metre rail. When he sort of lobbed one out, and then he had Hartnell to take her into the race, everything worked out as well as it possibly could for me, for this horse. And like she won 7 in a row, 6 in a row, 7 in a row, I'm not sure what the number is. I can't knock her in any way, shape or form, but I can't declare her in a Cox Plate, and a lot of things that were happening straight after the race, like Cliff's Edge had a bit of fitness on her and certainly had control of the race, but you're back in Cliff's Edge in a Cox Plate, 50 Stars, and these horses are out the back. Hartnell's definitely not shown his best early in his preparations for sort of his last 2 or 3 at least, and he's getting older, so I'm not.
I'll be interested to see the actual official, the corrected times.
The corrected times.
They'll come through tonight. So
it was to me like at 1400 again is testing for her first up, but it was like it's bad to say barrier trial, but it was like it was just a sort of a tick over win for me. Everything was there except for fitness for her, and she did a good job. Yeah, but it's not a race you're writing home to mum about just yet.
And the last race was a bit of a average mare's race. Grey Shadow, it won it.
Yeah,
time wasn't all that flash.
The only one you did miss was Accelerates, which is another Godolphin horse.
Oh, we didn't talk about that?
No, we didn't talk about the fillies. Obviously, the time wasn't anything comparable to...
Yeah, about a bit over a second.
And I think the Colts have always shown a bit more than the fillies. I know Kiyomichi, which we're going to talk about, she won 2-year-old of the year, which was kind of surprising to me, even though she won a Golden Slipper. But the Colts, the Microphones, all these horses were the ones that you were sort of chomping at the bit to see, like your Castelvecchios coming back, and even the fillies that were probably more exciting to come back are your Loving Gabbies and those sorts of horses. So it doesn't surprise me that the time was inferior to Bivouac, but there was the Lyre and Exhilarates were both solid enough efforts, and they'll be difficult to beat in fillies races going forward. But much more excited about the Colts, Bivouac and Pandemic for me on the day as it comes to blue colours anyway.
Good. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. We'll just wrap that up now and come back for some questions.